Good evening, and welcome to Galactic Terrors, the online reading series that scours the known universe for scary stories, strange tales, weird horror, dark humor, and all sorts of literary oddities and grotesqueries from the weirdest, wildest, most imaginative authors writing in a variety of fascinating genres. I'm Jim Chambers.
And speaking of oddities, I'm Carol Gyzander. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you. And in fact, tonight's episode of Galactic Terrors will be an oddity in and of its own, as we are doing something a little bit different for the kickoff of 2022. We are not featuring readings per se this evening, but we're going to do a roundup with several of our HWA NY members and talk about some of the great books that we read in 2021.
Mm-hmm. You know, and it's an interesting thing. When we talked about doing this, we realized that some of the books will be from 2021, but others are just books that we've wanted to read for a long time and finally got around to, or classics that we reread, so it's an interesting mix. I'm going to have fun talking about these. Don't you think, Jim?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say and talk about some of the books that I enjoyed last year. And we have a terrific group to have that chat with. Joining us tonight are Randee Dawn, Teel James Glenn, and Steven Van Patten. So it's going to be quite an array of perspectives and reading choices.
Yeah. Oh, we'll bring them in a few minutes. Yeah.
Yes.
So here we are. It's the beginning of 2022, and one of the things that I know we're all looking forward to from HWA is the fact that Stoker Con is a little bit later in the spring, but there's a couple things going on with that right now, right? We're just about at the end of the period of time for making recommendations for the Stoker Awards. Those close on January 15th, right, Jim?
Yeah, that's correct. So for HWA members, if you read anything published in 2021 or saw a film that was really outstanding, horror film in 2021, there's still time to put in a recommendation for the Bram Stoker Award reading list. And if nothing else, it makes sure that something you thought was really exceptional gets onto a list with a whole bunch of other stuff people thought was exceptional and is there for people who are looking for something great to read or watch or check out, can go to that list and look for some options. And I also understand that a lot of libraries refer to that list when looking for books to fill their horror shelves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and people can go to horror.org in order to make a recommendation. You have just a couple days left to do that. But that's also one of the great benefits of being an HWA member is many authors will offer a free copy of their work for us to read and consider for recommendations. So it's a great way to get a lot of really good books. It's very cool. So that's a benefit in my mind.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. That's very cool. So what's going on with Stoker Con coming up, Jim?
We are working away. My co-chair, Brian Matthews, and I are working with a really dedicated and excited team to put Stoker Con 2022 together. It'll be at at the Curtis Hotel in Denver, May 12th to the 15th. And we're in the midst now of kind of pulling programming together. We're putting some programming together for the virtual portion of the convention. We'll be doing a hybrid convention, and we recorded the first of the virtual panels earlier this week.
Ooh, that's exciting! That's exciting.
And so we'll be archiving a bunch of those ahead of the convention in the coming weeks.
That's very cool. That's cool. I'm going to put my headphones on because I have a little bit of an echo, and I always chuckle by that because the cat sitting in my lap, her name is Echo, and I always think maybe it's her fault,
So headphones or not, you've always got a little bit of an echo.
Exactly. I call her my Velcro cat because she insists on sitting on my lap at all times. Yeah. Well, there's one other thing to mention. I just put in the chat here. We have a newsletter with information about our upcoming events. We don't spam you. We don't send a lot of stuff. We only send stuff about these Galactic Terrors events. So y'all, if you're not on the list, you can sign up for it. Nicholas wants to see the hammy kitty. Okay.
She's right here. She's why are you picking me up?
Oh,
Yeah, now it's an official online event. There we go.
there.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah, so please join our newsletter if you'd like to be kept up to date about what we're doing with Galactic Terrors. And you can also take advantage of that fancy technology that YouTube provides to like this video and to subscribe to our Galactic Terrors YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Apparently YouTube likes it when people do that. So they give us all sorts of extra, huge incentives in our pay every week.
Right.
No, that's not true.
That's it. No,
Right.
we get an extra lollipop in the candy bag. I have no
fair.
idea what that means.
I don't either, but every year is Halloween. Every month is Halloween. So that's cool. Well, what do you say we tell people about the wonderful HWA New York writers who are joining us tonight?
Absolutely.
Does that sound like a good plan? Cool.
Yes, let's get started.
Well, let me tell you about our first one, Randee Dawn. She's a Brooklyn-based author and journalist. Her first novel, the humorous pop culture fantasy Tune In Tomorrow, will be published in 2022. Her short fiction has appeared in a variety of publications and podcasts, including Dim Shores Presents, Horror for the Throne, which is the one you see there, One Sitting Read. That's a great title. And Another World, Stories of Portal Fantasy. When not making stuff up, Randee also publishes entertainment profiles, reviews, and think pieces regularly in outlets including Variety, the Los Angeles Times, Today.com, and Emmy Magazine, and she writes trivia for BigBrain. She can be found at randeedawn.com. We'll bring Randee in just a minute.
Yes. And that book, I think it's Horror for the Throne, includes one of Randee's story in that book is one of the darkest stories I've ever had the pleasure to read.
It's freaking awesome. It's awesome. Yes.
All right. Our next reader is Teel James Glenn. Teel has killed hundreds and been killed more times on stage and screen as he has traveled the world for 40 plus years as a stuntman, swordmaster, storyteller, bodyguard, actor, and haunted house barker. His short stories have been printed in over 100 magazines, including Weird Tales, Mystery Weekly, Pulp Adventures, Spine Tingler, Mad, Fantasy Tales, Cersova, Sherlock Holmes Mystery, and Blazing Adventures. His latest novels are A Cowboy in Carpathia, a Bob Howard adventure, which was the winner of the Best Novel in the Pulp Factory Awards, published by Pro Se Productions, The Skullmask Chronicles from Bold Venture Press, Killing Shadows and Dragon Throat from Airship 27 Productions. He's also the winner of the 2012 Pulp Arc Award for Best Author. His website is theurbanswashbuckler.com.
Cool. And our third HWA New York author who is joining us tonight is Steven Van Patten. He is the author of the celebrated Brookwater's Curse vampire trilogy and the Killer Genius serial killer series. He's also co-author of Hell at the Way Station, which won Best Anthology and Best in Science Fiction at the 2019 African American Literary Awards. He's published numerous short stories and is a contributor for the YouTube channel Extra History and the Viral Vignette series. He's a member of the New York chapter of the Horror Writers Association, the Directors Guild of America, and the professional arts fraternity Gamma Xi Phi Incorporated. He's also the publisher of Growth, The Basics of Our Gardens, a how-to guide for growing medicinal marijuana. Sequels to most of his horror stories have been in the works, including Hell at Brooklyn T, which was released in 2021. His website is laughingblackvampire.com. So what do you think? Should we have some authors join us, Jim?
Absolutely. Welcome, Randee.
Hey!
Teel. And Steven.
Hey! How's everybody?
What's up?
Oh, good.
Good.
Well, thank you all for joining us.
Thanks for having
me.
Going along with this experimental episode of Galactic Terrors, where we're gathering the weirdest, wildest, and most imaginative authors to talk about other people's books.
It's never bad when a horror writer says, "I want to experiment on something with you."
Online and record it. Yeah. How can you beat
Exactly.
that?
in front of an audience.
Yeah. So yeah, for those of you who might have just tuned in, we're doing something different tonight. We're chatting with our New York chapter writers about books that they read in 2021 that they've enjoyed, whether they're from 2021 or, ones they've been meaning to read for a while, or, anything has struck their fancy. So we asked them each for 3 books, and we'll talk about them, and I think we should have a little fun. Now, y'all have been reading some stuff. The folks in the audience, I know, have been reading, and I've seen some names of books popping up along there as well. So if there's anything that you guys have read that you thought was a lot of fun, or if you've read any of these, feel free to pop up. Jim, I'm hearing an echo again.
Yeah, just a little bit of an echo.
Yeah, I can't blame the cat. Let's see. Often that's because the sound is coming out of the speaker and is being picked up by the microphone of somebody on the call. So why don't we ask Teel, can you mute yourself for a minute down at the bottom, and we'll see if the echo continues? I'm going to keep talking. Is the echo still there?
Yeah.
It is. Okay, Randee, can you mute yourself for a second?
This is probably my fault somehow.
And is the echo still there? Oh, okay. Randee, do you have any kind of a microphone headphone you could add in?
Maybe. Give me. I'll do that while you.
Okay. We'll babble at will. I
Teel, yeah,
may
you
do
can
that a lot.
unmute.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
That's very fun.
See, it's that experiment in front of people thing. It's scary.
Yes. You wouldn't believe what we had to do to set up an echo just to make one of our writers go crazy,
It's a short walk.
That's it. We plan everything up for this show in meticulous detail, weeks in advance.
Yes.
Nothing whatsoever is thrown together in a frantic rush between 6 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. on the night of the broadcast.
Jim, what's your background? What's behind you there? Are you out in the Great Swamp, or?
Yeah, I'm out in a local hiking area that includes a swamp section. Yeah, it's
nice.
It's pretty swampy. You can get lost there.
Yeah.
And what's the sink time for bodies to the bottom?
Well, there are a lot of variables that go into determining that, Teel, and I've spent quite a lot of time trying different combinations to determine I'm sorry, I'm probably giving too much information away.
Oh, wait, yeah.
No, but that's understandable. It's the physics side of it. How many rocks, how many chains.
Exactly. Purely for physics. That's the only reason I drop bodies in the swamp.
Well, we are a multi-genre broadcast. We don't just do horror. So this is important for, murder, for thrillers, for mysteries. Yeah,
Is this better, by the way?
Yes, thank you so much. Oh, you're
okay. I've got earbuds in now. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear us
sound
okay?
great. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think we can probably jump in to what we're going to be doing tonight. And I have some nifty slides here that Carol prepared. Thank you very much, Carol. Our first is our 2021 reading list, Galactic Terrors, January 2022. And we're all going to wind up looking like that skull right there in the middle. I'm sure that at some point, me and my to be read pile will greatly resemble that picture.
I ever-growing avalanche. Yeah.
I was actually just considering it for a Christmas card, even though that just passed.
Yeah, you could put a little Santa cap on the skull. And...
Yeah.
Dude, exactly.
Right?
My favorite part is the way the skull's jaw is just slightly off true, so he's kind of
Yeah.
Well, he clearly had a couple.
That's exactly the expression of I didn't get to that last book.
Right.
Or I think he said, I'll get through them all. Yeah.
What do you mean it's a sequel? Oh man.
But I think I mean I don't know if anybody else finds this phenomena, but my to be read pile seems to grow by at least 2 or 3 books for every book I finish.
Mm-hmm. It's exponential. Yeah.
I soon will have no living space at all.
Exactly.
And well, before we start talking about the specific books, I was also just curious to know if in the last couple of years, life has changed a lot for so many of us. Have you found a difference in the way you're reading things? Are you reading books as often as you did or less? Are you having trouble reading? I myself am only reading audiobooks anymore. I cannot make myself sit down or hold a book and read it. I just get too twitchy. So I'm going audiobooks almost all the time. What's
I've devolved into mostly short stories.
Yeah.
I can kind of push through a short story before I have to do something else. It's not tough.
It's gonna sound cold-blooded, but honestly, I have not found my reading to be changed very much at all. I mean, I read what as we were going into lockdown back in 2020, I had the library's copy of what was Chuck Wendig's book again? Wanderers.
The Wanderers. Yeah.
Wanderers.
Yeah.
I had it with me. I was about halfway through it. And that, of course, is about,
800 and something pages. Yeah.
And also about a pandemic that, changes the world. And I was like, yeah, this is great. Finishing this book, moving on to the next one. I don't know, for whatever reason, my personal reading abilities have not shifted.
Cool.
It didn't. It didn't get to me for the first 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
Then it's partway through 2020 is when it sort of kicked in. I'm also I can't watch an hour drama in one shot. I DVR everything because I have to seem to do it in 20-minute clips these days. So
you alternate stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, for me, my leisure reading has definitely been cut into, but not so much because of anything, I guess, other than the fact that, well, you guys know I have a podcast, Beef Wine Shenanigans. I host with Mark Abbott and Kirk Johnson. And the prep work for that sometimes, if I have an author coming on the show, then I like to try to read their book so I can actually ask relevant questions and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's it's the what I have to do versus what I want to do. And of course, with the research stuff that I have to do for other my other clients or whatever, so my leisure reading has definitely been cut into.
Interesting.
Cool. Well, what about you, Jim?
I all of this change in how we do things wound up creating for me extra time. And so I've been able to do a lot more reading than I had been doing, and have been able to keep up with more books and actually get to some books I had set aside that I was dying to get to, and finally read them. And I know as a result, I've kind of gotten back into a much better or more ambitious groove of reading. I used to years and years ago, before life, adulthood became very busy and all of these things, and kids and work and career and all that stuff took over. I was always reading 2 or 3 books at the same time, and I would just kind of have books in different places, or I would need a break from one book and start another one, and then just kind of go back and forth. And I've actually gotten back to doing that, which is kind of fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, it gets a little fragmented at times, but so far I haven't mixed anything up. I haven't gotten confused what's this character doing? Mixed it up with the plot of the book. So
yeah. Well, it's interesting, Jim, because out of the list of these 15 books, you're the one who provided all 3 books from 2021, and all the rest of us have, mixed up a little bit, which I think is cool as well. So that's just an interesting observation.
Yeah.
Not that that's worth anything, but, that's cool. So what should we do? Should we start with Randee? What do you think, Jim?
Yes, I think that sounds great. Let me just respond briefly to a little chat question.
Yeah. And a couple of people mentioned that, Nick reads his friends' books, and Christopher is devouring everything he can get his hands on, so
excellent.
Yeah.
Yep. And I see, good. Yep. The HP Lovecast. The really wonderful podcast that Nicholas Dyack and Michelle Brittany do.
Oh, very nice.
And SVP's is Beef, Wine, and Shenanigans, which is awesome amount of fun.
Yes.
So yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
We're going to jump to our first book, and then we're going to let Randee tell us why this book is awesome. book number 1, Big Girl, Outspoken Authors 2020 by Meg Ellison.
So yeah, I mean, it's a slim volume. It's got, probably about, it's a collection of short stories and essays by Meg Ellison, and it's a little over 100 pages, but it's absolutely worth your while. She's a really, really interesting writer who I've just been starting to get into. I know she's been around for a while and has won awards and everything. She's also the author of the book of The Unnamed Midwife. There's a trio of those, and she's won, what did she win? I think she's won various awards for these things, including like the Locus Awards and all of that. But yeah, Big Girl, what's really interesting about Meg is that you feel like, of course, you're reading fiction, but you also feel you can hear her coming through on the page. And she does everything from dark fantasy to just, cri de coeur kind of essays about being a woman of size in the world. And I think, whether you're, a larger person or a smaller person in the world, the whole commenting on bodies and the way we feel like we can be objects to people depending on the way that we appear, you can feel how that has really infuriated her, and that has really galvanized the work that she does. One of the stories that she's got in there is called The Pill, and it walks you through and also goes in directions you don't expect it to. What it would be like if there was a pill and you could just lose 10 pounds overnight, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, and what that would be like. And then sort of taking it to the nth degree, what if everybody did that? Then what happens for people who decide they don't want to? It becomes a gateway into a really weird autocratic kind of society. And then she still takes it in a further direction that you just don't necessarily see coming. So I've really enjoyed what I have read of her so far. I have not read every single thing, but I actually hung out with her a bit at WorldCon in December. And she's really interesting to talk to. She's super smart, and she just has this passion for her topic, for all of her topics, I'm sure, but specifically this stuff, because it cuts so close to home. And she is who she is, and she loves who she is, and we should all be like that a little bit more, no matter what we look like. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I heartily recommend Big Girl. It's a quick read. I was able to read it in just a couple of days, and then you can move on to her other wonderful books, the sort of post-apocalyptic Unnamed Midwife trilogy. It's called the Road to Nowhere trilogy.
Oh, yeah. Cool. My list of books. Oh, Jim, what have we done here? Wait a minute. Okay. So listen, folks in the audience, if you have questions for our authors or questions about the books, feel free to put those in the chat as we go along, and we can pass those.
Please join in with the in the conversation if you've read these books or just have thoughts on them. Yeah.
One thing I was wondering, Randee, did reading her book have any effect on the way you would want to write any characters in the future?
I don't know if it would just be about characters. I mean, I would love to be as brutally honest as she can be, I don't think you have to be writing about yourself in all of your books, although pieces of you show up in every book. And there are a lot of things that we don't talk about, or we just decide we want to put into nice, like my background. We just want to sort of blur it all out or change the world in such a way that it just makes it into a fantasy. And I think what I would love to do is to be able to be as honest with myself in my writing as she is. And of course, that would translate into characters and all of that. I mean, I've got the novel I have coming out in August does have a character of size, but that's not the focus of the book, and that's not the focus of her personally. It's just an aspect of her. But I wanted to be able to include a character that dealt with things that women of size do, and that was important to me to get that accurate. And like I say, I would love to be able to, be as honest with that kind of developments and that kind of storytelling as she is with her work.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
Has anybody here read anything by this author?
I haven't, but I frankly, that sounds incredibly fascinating. I mean, I'm a person of size, just differently.
Right.
And I've had to, I've had a lot of encounters in the world where my size matters, in a negative way. I mean, I have when I'm walking down the street, I got to be careful not to be whistling "Hole of the Mountain King." I'm on the street at night because people are like, that giant freak is coming after me. I when I worked as a bouncer, it was mostly just my look. I didn't have to do anything.
And I think the other thing and I just wanted to also insert here in case that wasn't 100% clear, that like not just in The Pill, but also there's another story in which a teenage girl just grows to be 250 feet, and like it's not played for laughs. Yeah. It's about embracing that. It's not about shying away from it. It's not trying to cut it.
Yeah, well, my daughter is 6'3", and she has always embraced her height and her size. She was never one of the girls who walked like this. She's always been tall and proud, and as somebody who was always not embracing his height growing up, it's been wonderful for me to see that in her. I mean, you see her walk into a room with any of her friends, and they're down here on her, and she's totally off, and she loves wearing 4-inch heels. Yeah. So she's taller than me when we're standing together. And to me, that is incredible freedom, because it really used to be, if you were a woman who wasn't size 2 or less and wasn't under 5'5", you were some kind of beast. And as a guy, it's something I'm very conscious of. I always see photos of me with people and go, "Oh, look, I'm a different species." I mean, the book I'm writing now, I deal with some of that, and I'm realizing I'm pulling a lot of that out of me in the character. But it is a thing in our society, particularly. We are very face connected.
Lookist.
Everything. Yeah.
It sounds like this, and this is one I'll definitely have to look out for. It sounds like this does what I've always thought the best speculative fiction can do, which is to take these imaginative ideas and fantastic ideas and use them to illuminate real issues, the non-fantastic issues and concerns and themes. And that only works best when somebody really is writing from the heart, writing honestly. And that's, one of those things that's always been kind of the, what's the word? I guess the catch-22 in a way of speculative fiction is, you're supposed to write what you know, but, we don't know these things, we're making them up, but you've got to put in something there that you do know, that really well firsthand and feel strongly about, passionately about, and bring that across. And that's always one of the benchmarks I use to kind of assess, do I like this book or do I love this book? And it sounds like this book really does that well.
Right. Yeah, the personal becomes the through line, and the story is kind of the not frou-frou, but it's the stuff that goes around this through line. I know I've certainly read that in Steven's stories.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, especially in one comes to mind for Steven is it hasn't been published yet, but will be soon, which is your contribution to Even in the Grave.
Oh yeah.
Very powerful. Yeah.
I
was definitely in a mood when I wrote that.
Having read much of your stuff, you're often definitely in a mood.
Stephen, I only cry every time I read it, sir.
Speaking of mood, shall we move on to the next book?
Speaking of Stephen, yeah.
Well,
let's go to Teel. Let's go to
Teel. Coming from Teel.
Please.
And this is one I know I've read, but it was not last year. All right. And Teal's book number 1 is Third from the Sun, 13 Stories of the Weird and Fantastic, selected from Born of Man and Women by Richard Matheson.
This particular collection, I have a shelf full of Matheson stories. I think he's just brilliant, can write in any genre. He wrote a memoir, World War II story about his experience. He's written Westerns, and, most people know him from The Incredible Shrinking Man and I Am Legend, which are brilliant. But this particular book, the reason I picked it, this is one of those stories I reread every 2 or 3 years. I think of 3 books that influenced me as a writer, or three stories. It's Telltale Heart, Two Lives of Pincher Martin, and Born of Man and Woman. It was Matheson's very first sale, and it won him a Hugo Award. And the premise of the story is it's a diary of this unnamed child in a basement who is creating his own language as he's writing the diary. And as it goes along, you begin reading it thinking this is some sort of horrible child abuse. And it is, because you're seeing it from his point of view. And as you go along, you realize this child that pulls its chain out of the wall to go scramble up the wall and look out the window at the other little mommies and daddies out there is some sort of hideous mutant that the parents keeping chained in the basement. And it is the most heart-wrenching, emotional, connective story. And yet I'm just going to read the opening 2 lines because it's the language of this that I find so amazing. X. This day when it was light, mother called me wretch. You wretch, she said. I saw in her eyes the anger. I wonder what is a wretch. This day had water falling from upstairs. It fell all around. I saw that. The ground in the back I watched from the little window. The ground, it sucked up the water like thirsty lips. It drank too much and got sick and runny brown. I didn't like that. That use of language to me is just so amazing. And then it goes on to say it found a magazine stuffed behind the furnace that had pictures of little mommies and little daddies in it. And they are pretty like mommy and daddy, because I heard daddy call mommy pretty once. And you want to cry because it's this, and it's its own language, and it creates its own language like that all the way through. And it's a relatively short story, maybe 4,000 words, maybe less. And by the end of it, you want to run and save this thing that can crawl on the ceiling and bleeds green, because it says that.
Right.
It's something we don't know, but it's from his point of view, and this is his world. And it's just, but Matheson can write anything. He's got a story in his collection that's second person present. In 1952, he wrote this story. He's got another one where, and Matheson is the guy that everybody, he did the kid who falls into the 4th dimension under the bed in the Twilight Zone. Right. He did the thing on the wing of the plane. He did the little bobblehead that tells you your future for a penny. The episodes of the Twilight Zone you think of, Matheson wrote the short stories and then adapted his own short stories. He was a brilliant screenwriter. He could adapt anything and get the essence of it, his own or other people's. He adapted Night Stalker from the original unpublished novel. Yeah. He did the first film, and he got the absolute essence of that novel without losing the author's voice, and yet he's got his own. So he really is one of the most brilliant writers ever, and I've never read anything by him that was anything less than good, and a lot of it is often just amazing. So that's, like I said, I read that. I pick up a Matheson book every once in a while and randomly pick up a story, but that story I reread about every 2 years, just to go, it doesn't have to be flowery language to completely nail a character and a world. Language matters so much.
Yeah.
I think, Teel, that was the first Matheson story that I read.
Wow.
And the second one I read was Some of Your Blood, or it's the one where the boy thinks he's a vampire.
Yes.
I think it's Some of Your Blood. No, I'm not. That might not be the title. Or Son of Man.
Son of Man.
Is it Son of Man? It might be Son of Man. I can't remember the title of that. But
and speaking of vampires, of course, he's the one behind I Am Legend.
Yes, which is incredibly brilliant writing. And here was a trivia question for a bar. What character was played by William Smith, Charlton Heston, and Vincent Price? Played the same character.
Mm-hmm.
Neville.
That's the lead in I Am Legend. All 3 film versions.
And Teel, Nick has a question in the chat. Third from the Sun, wasn't that a Twilight Zone episode as well? Now, you had actually given us a picture of it, which we don't have to put up. But
it's actually in this collection, which is why they named this collection that. Yeah, it's the people escaping from a planet, and they go, and at the end, of course, they're going to the planet that's third from the sun. They call it Earth.
Yeah,
I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
such a great episode.
They got a lot of use on Twilight Zone out of the ships from Forbidden Planet. They got a lot of use.
Right.
That ship.
You know what? And I mean, this is just kind of an off the wall observation, but it always struck me. So when I first discovered horror fiction, and I read, it was really through Stephen King and Clive Barker, and so I read a ton of that stuff by them in the 80s. When I was really getting into this, and I read a ton of Stephen King, and I discovered Matheson later. And the more I read of Matheson, the more I sort of saw the shadow he cast over King in particular, and how you can almost map King's progression to Matheson's progression, who'd done it decades earlier.
Yeah.
In terms of the stories they told, and the things that the themes that they tackled.
So the thing that they're most brilliant at is taking common everyday things and making them interesting, different, odd, but because they don't start with a wild premise, they start very suburban, very normal, both of them, and then they go off the rails slowly.
Yeah, and what occurred to me also, just in the couple of stories we've talked about here, is that Matheson does that great thing where he thinks outside the box. He looks for the different perspective in what might otherwise be a familiar story. There's lots of ways to tell the story of the mutant in the basement. That could be the parents who are horrified. It could be a lot of things, but he goes in a different doorway.
Yes,
absolutely. The thing. I mean, I Am Legend, when I finally finished the story, that just blew me away at the very end.
Yeah.
Because then you get it. And I feel like he did that really well. And when some of the best stories that you read are the ones that may tell you a story you might have seen somewhere else, a vampire story.
Yeah.
But to go at it from a different angle is the sign of a really good writer.
Yeah. And you'll often take a fairly mundane idea and say, this idea would be interesting if I went here and looked at it from over here. And suddenly it's a whole other story.
Right.
Because he does the story about the guy who's so full of hate that his house starts to kill him, and those kinds of things.
And I took a moment just to check that title, and the story I was talking about is Blood Sun.
Blood Sun.
Sun. Yeah. So well worth reading. So good pick.
Cool.
All right.
Cool. Well, what do you think? How about an SVP story?
I think it's Steven's turn. Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
And Steven's first pick for tonight is Slay, Stories of the Vampire Noir, edited by Nicole Givens Kurtz. So,
no bias here. I do have a story in Slay, but this basically what I want to do right now is just give props to everybody else. Milton Davis, Valjean, Jeffries, Sherry Renee Thompson. Pretty much every story is it's pretty much what I feel like a lot of us writers of color are trying to accomplish in terms of just the inclusiveness and exploring different aspects. And what's great about the book also is that a little something for everybody. Like, some of the stories are actually very sensual. My evil twin, Steve Van Sampson's story, No God But Hunger, is like this balls to the wall just apocalyptic thing. You know, I don't want to give too much away, but like Elma Marie Wood's The Dance was like that was like, I don't want to say porn, but it was definitely like, oh, okay, at least, well, all right. You know, and it was just the whole book and the way she put it together in terms of the highs and the lows and how, you know, Nicole structured the whole thing. She just did an amazing job. And, you know, I'm glad that the book is getting the props that it's getting. And yeah, that was my first pick. Absolutely.
Cool. I have to confess, I've read some of the stories. I have not read all of the stories in there, but it's in my TBR pile. So I backed it back when the Kickstarter was out because it looked so cool. So
I read. I don't think I've read all of them yet. I did read a good chunk of the stories in that, and the I think it was the first story in the book really stuck with me because it had such a unique take. What's that?
Was that the Desiccant?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's such a unique take on the idea of vampires, and the way that it worked into the setting was just perfect. And it, you know, really, that story works on so many levels, and it sucked you right in. No pun intended.
No pun intended.
I see what you did there.
And you also don't see a lot of trans mention in our genre period. So, you know, again, being inclusive, you know, it's like, for me, I know that for me, it's very important to me. And, you know, it's just nice to see everybody else kind of like, you know, really hitting that one out of the park.
It's a hell of a cover too.
What's that?
Yeah.
Love that cover.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know. I was almost like, hey, Nicole, so who is that?
Yeah, I know. I'm still looking for Foxy Brown myself. Yeah.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Oh, and real quick, just because I saw it in the chat and I can't answer, I'm drinking a Malbec. So.
There we go.
Okay. Well, that's a nice warm thing for a cool evening.
Exactly.
So great choice, Stephen.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
That's very cool.
Stephen, I'm curious about Slay. Is there anything else like this out there where it's a collection, you know, like this for other areas of this genre or other genres? I mean, I feel like I don't see these kind of things nearly enough.
No, not really. I mean, not to toot my own horn. I mean, when Mark Abbott and I came up with Hell at the Way Station and later on Hell at Brooklyn T, I mean, we kind of that's kind of what we were doing to a degree, but then we also wrote ourselves and our practically our superhero versions of ourselves into that. What's funny, real quick, just how that even came to be, because it wasn't like I feel like Slay, like she really sat down and she got her lofty ideals together and she called me and a whole bunch of other people and she got this thing happening and it was great. Mark Abbott and I were literally in a bar, half in a bag, and he says, you know, I'm tired of these publishers rejecting our stories, man. We gotta, and he just goes off into this whole thing. And I'm very pliable at this point. So I'm like, yeah, all right, Mark, sure, whatever. I wake up the next morning and I'm like, wait, what did I just agree to? And
I have the feeling that many of your adventures begin with that same phrase.
Yeah. Of course, we're talking real life, not what I put on pen and paper. Hey, Linda.
Yes. It's a nice comment from Linda Addison. Love the books by SVP and Mark. Okay. Yes. She is a very smart woman, you know.
Oh.
So I just pulled it. I actually got the Kindle edition of this. So I just pulled it up on my Kindle app. And the story I was talking about, Desiccant, was written by Craig Lawrence Gidney. Mm-hmm. And Stephen, I just remembered which story you had in here. And Stephen's probably not going to toot his own horn, but it's a great vampire story called The Retiree. That it's sort of like a modern SVP take on the classic Hammer horror idea of vampires, in a way. Yeah.
Well, Steven sort of explored vampires in a great deal. The Brookwaters Curse trilogy is freaking amazing. It needs to be a series, if only to get through the second book, because then the Scottish vampires come in, and I'm good with that.
Yeah. Well.
Vampires in kilts. I'm there.
Talk about, never mind. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm wondering, Steven, with all those other vampire stories, I think of you as one of my go-to vampire writers. So what was it like reading all these different stories? Did that influence the way you're thinking about other stories in the future?
Well, not so. I mean, I'm going to keep it honest. I'll read other vampire stories, but I'm also trying desperately to just not do what anybody else does.
Yeah.
So
you got to take that.
It's like you almost have to, like, I remember, what the hell was the name of that movie? The one where the vampires go up into, I guess it's like Alaska, and it's
28 days.
Yeah.
No, it's 30 days.
That's a zombie thing. 30 days of night. Yes.
Yeah.
30 days of night. God, no God.
28 days later is rage virus zombie steel.
Yeah. When I first heard the premise of that, I was like, because I was like, damn it, why didn't I think of that? And then I was like, because I'm a child of the New York educational school system, and nobody really talked geography that much.
Well, come on. I mean, there is no night in New York most of the time. The city never sleeps. You always find light.
I have to throw something out. Has anyone seen the first episode of Firebite?
No,
haven't even heard of it. Yeah.
For those of you who are Buffy fans, apparently somebody saw this and went, "Ooh, what a great idea!" Or maybe not. I don't know. But it's an Australian series about Aboriginal vampire hunters, from the Aboriginal vampire hunters' point of view, narrated by like a 16-year-old Aboriginal girl and her buddy, who is like a Mad Max Aboriginal car driver, and they're hunting because when Europeans came to Australia, 11 on those ships were vampires, and they liked the blackfella blood, is the way they put it, and they've been fighting them since then. They live like in caves where they used to dig out the opals. And there's like a whole clan of Aboriginal vampire hunters. Jeez. It is the first episode I saw. It's on AMC Plus, which I don't have. So I saw the free one. It was amazing.
Well, I guess I know what I'm doing tonight.
Cool.
I mean, it opens like Mad Max meets Buffy meets an SVP book. It's just freaking great.
Jill, what did you watch that on? Linda's wondering in the chat.
I was on BBC America, and they had Doctor Who, and then they did the Doctor Who Extended, and afterwards was a free episode of this in. It was part of the same, because I DVR'd it. I didn't even know it was on afterwards. And it was part of the presentation, part of the extended Doctor Who thing. And I'm like, this is amazing.
It's showing up on AMC Plus online. So
okay.
Give it a try.
I'm like, I had no idea what is this thing. And I watched the first minute or two of it, and I'm like, what?
All right.
It was one of those out of the blue. Because and the thing is, I didn't realize it. I never saw. Apparently, there's an episode of Buffy where they talk about the origin of the Slayers, and that they were a bunch of Aboriginal old men who like conjured the first abilities and put it into the first Slayer. And apparently, the end of the Buffy series, Willow makes all potential Slayers available at once. Because she says anything old guys can do, I can do, and like sets it up so there's now an army of Slayers. But the visual they showed were Aboriginal elders. So apparently, either someone saw that and went, "Ooh, that's a good idea," or the writer of this was aware of the concept, because it really is brilliant. Because yes, we bring all of our freaking diseases when we colonize, including vampirism. You know.
So that was the early origin of the little ditty. I can do anything you can do better. I can do anything better than you.
Yeah.
So I think I have a feeling we're not going to get to all of our picks tonight.
No, that's
conversations
okay.
are great though.
Oh wow!
I'm having fun with you guys. This is
But
right.
I think let's jump on to the next book so we can at least get through the first round, and then maybe we can sort of flash.
Yes. And we'll have this list available for everybody. We'll tell you about that later.
But the next book up is Carol.
Yeah, and
that
it's
is
funny that you mentioned this, Randee.
Wanderers, a novel by Chuck Wendig.
Yeah. So this came out in 2020, and it was wonderful timing on his part, or the publisher's part, to bring it out right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I know a lot of folks have had issues with their books that were not appropriately timed. So I didn't read it right away, but I read it recently. And this is a big book. It's like 800 plus pages long. And it was, I don't know, 24 hours on Audible or on audiobook or something like that. But man, I could not put it down. I just kept going through it. And yes, it does deal with a pandemic that's all over. And there's a medical guy trying to track things down. And there's other people trying to figure out what's going on. And no spoilers. We're trying not to do spoilers in our stories here. But one of the things that I was the most amazed about was how well he did the different points of view for the different characters in the story. There was a teenage girl, and there was this old, middle-aged scientist guy, and they're written by the same author, but the two characters sounded so completely different that I was just blown away. And it was just a delight to read it and see all these people interacting, and then how it all comes together toward the end. It was really, really wonderful. So I enjoyed it a lot. And it, I don't know that I would have wanted to read it in March of that year, but I was ready by the time I got to it. So I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know if anybody else read it or not.
I did. I had it stuck.
Yeah, Randee did. Yeah.
We know she read half of it.
Well, I had it, and the library closed down, and they said, don't bring your books in, just keep the books. So I actually had it for most of 2020 because you couldn't even take it back to the library. But I remember when I was reading it, I was thinking, look, I'm a big vintage Stephen King fan, so this is not meant to be a slam. But it had for me the same enjoyment of the early big Stephen
King saga
ones,
with
a big ensemble cast that all comes together. But I also felt this was, again, no offense to King, a few IQ points higher than some of his stuff. Like there was just more. It was better crafting, in my opinion.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think that anyone who's writing that kind of pandemic book now has to look back at The Shining. They have, and go, I have to not do that. I have to do something more.
The Stand too, probably.
Yeah, that's what I meant was The Stand. My brain is small. But The Stand. Well, I mean, we all said Captain Trips the first 4 months of 2020,
Yeah.
I said that all through the 70s, but then that's a different thing. Yeah.
So we actually have a question from Gary Frank, which I'm going to pop up here.
Yeah.
Is there a book too?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Wanderers itself does have a very satisfying conclusion, and after 800 pages, we really want it to. But I would be very unhappy if it left you hanging. But it has a satisfying conclusion. But there is more story going forward. I've just been, I won't say I've been dying for it because that's not really good to talk about with that kind of book. But I've been really looking forward to it. He's been working on it diligently. I don't know what do you do.
Soon.
I think so. Yeah. I don't know. What do you do after an 800-page book? Does it have to get, is it a shorter book? Is it the same length? Does it need to be, more words? I don't know. What do you do? But, it's going to take a kind of trippy turn, I think. So that'll be interesting to see. So.
Yeah, bad ending after that. I could see you being upset.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, You get to the end of it, it doesn't pay off. That's when you start looking up the Google address of the author.
Right.
Yeah.
You throw a book that big across the room in frustration, and something's liable to get broken.
Yeah.
But that's a good conversation for later on. It's like, hey, Carol, so from a scale of 1 to Steven Van Patten after you'd finished watching Lost, how upset are you?
Stephen, I have a feeling you and I
11.
probably had the same reaction to the
Man, ooh.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up in a room with Carlton Cuse at one point, and it was every bit of professionalism I had to pull out of my body to not say something about that damn show. Ooh, oh Lord!
For some reason, whenever I think of the end of Lost, my brain flashes to that scene in Office Space where they take the malfunctioning fax machine out into a field and stomp it to pieces out of frustration. I don't know why it makes that connection, but that's kind of where it goes.
It's because you're having been an office worker, that's how you relate all violence to office machines being destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay.
We actually had there was a panel at Worldcon about sticking the landing on show finales.
Yeah.
So that one certainly did come up.
Well, it has to do with having an idea to begin with is good. Not, actually having an ending in your mind is a good thing. Many just don't. And I see that too often. I'll see a show going, they don't know what to do after 3 episodes of this, do they? No, they don't.
Exactly.
They sold this on a pitch in an elevator and came out and went, crap, I don't actually have a story.
The only defense I would put up on Lost, and I did not. I'm neither pro nor con on Lost per se. But the one thing I would say about Lost is they didn't start this. Like, they were not there at the beginning. This is called J.J. Abrams starting an idea, abandoning the ship, and saying, "You guys sail it into port now." And I'm not saying they couldn't have done it better, but I think Lindelof did it better with Leftovers, because it's basically, it's like, oh, it's Afterlife. So I think Lindelof probably could have done better. I can't say that he did it worse because Cuse was there, but I think, they had a hard job ahead of them, and they thought they could stick that landing. And,
how
many seasons did Lost run? Was it 5?
I think it was
42.
42.
Well, I mean, it's like however many seasons, it really just boiled down to being the world's longest adaptation of an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that I was like, this.
Yeah. It was the snow globe in the kid's hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have to jump in. The occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. Teel James Glenn wrote a really fabulous steampunk follow-on story for one of my writer punk anthologies that takes place after occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, and it is so cool. So I just want to say,
cool.
Good job,
All
man.
right. Shall we jump on to our next book?
Yeah, the next book is by Jim Chambers.
This is one of my picks. So this is a book that, and this was, I think, a 2021 publication.
Yes. So
and this is Come With Me by Ronald Malfi. And this, I've been reading Ronald Malfi's books literally since his first novel. Raw Dog Screaming Press published The Fall of Never way back when, and it happened to come out at a convention that I was at, and Ron was there. Raw Dog Screaming Press was there. I bought Ron's book. Ron bought my book, and I was hooked from The Fall of Never, which is a fantastic novel. And I've read a ton of Ron's stuff over the years, and I had dropped off on the last few books. And then my friend John P. Collins suggested Come With Me as being really exceptional, and so I picked it up, and it is. It's a heartbreaking thriller, dark thriller. There's certain, supernatural possibilities to it. But the premise is that there's a married couple, relatively young married couple, no children. The wife is a journalist, and the husband, I think, is a translator. The wife goes out to a downtown area one day and is tragically murdered in a random, or she's a random victim of a shooting. It's a mass shooting. A guy walks into a business where he has a grudge and shoots a bunch of people and happens to kill this guy's wife. And that's the start. And so it's already pretty intense. And from there, the husband starts to learn things that he had no idea about his wife, and starts to dig into her history, her past, and one of the stories she was investigating. So she was primarily sort of a soft journalism writer. She was writing a lot of community pieces and covering local events and things like that. Wrote a column that was more on the sort of the social and human story side than the hard news side. But she'd been investigating a potential serial killer. Yeah. And he starts to realize she'd been doing this totally in secret, piecing together that, that weekend that she was away, she was actually at this like motel in out of the way Virginia, researching this case and trying to track down clues and evidence and things. And so he decides he has to understand what this was. I mean, and it gets really intense. He finds a chest in the closet of artifacts, and she'd even gone so far as to get a gun. And he starts digging in, and it's really one of those stories that travels down the rabbit hole. It's like every next step, it's like you get deeper and deeper into something that goes to totally unexpected places. And then he uncovers all these connections that he had no idea his wife had. And one of the things that's really interesting about it is it's written in a sort of semi-second person at times, because the "come with me" in the title is one of the last things his wife said to the husband before she left and was killed. She said, she was going downtown and she said, "Come with me," and he decided not to. But a lot of the book, he's addressing her, and he's writing to you, and he's saying, you knew this, you did this. And it's a sort of a really interesting narrative device that gives it a very intimate feel. And it was a page turner. I was really deep into it. There's a lot of twists and turns, a lot of dark things, and it does a great job of surprising you. So that was my pick.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. It's a cool looking cover too.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Neat. Well, what do you think? Should we just like put up the other ones real quick and just go through them without doing an in-depth talk? What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I think let's get through at least the second round.
Okay.
Maybe we can do shorter descriptions, and then we'll take a break after looking at each slide from the second round, and then come back for a little chit chat. And that might be as far as we get.
Yeah, because we didn't know how this was going to go, but I've been really enjoying the conversation. This is very cool. So thanks for the folks in the audience.
And damn you all, because now my to-be-read pile is now bigger, and by at least one 800-page freaking book.
Yeah, for real. I feel like somebody's getting cussed out at some point. But
I think that's fair.
All right, so we'll come back around to Randee. So let's try to keep these to like the highlight, the quick snappy,
the highlight round. Okay.
Yeah. All right. The flash, not flash fiction, but the flash book commentary. All right. Randee's second choice, All Systems Red: The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Waters.
Yeah, so I'm a little behind the curve on this. I actually picked this book up, I think probably about a year ago. Started it, put it back down. I don't know. I could have been distracted by something shiny. But after I came back from Worldcon, where there's 8 Murderbot Diary books now, and they're not that big. Again, once we're talking about a slim volume, relatively speaking. She just won, the Hugo for the collected series. She's won the Nebula. I mean, it's kind of covers all the bases here. But basically what you're looking at is a self-aware security robot that has hacked its own governor module. So like it isn't required to do a lot of the things that it does, but it's still, it does security for the people who it's been hired to take care of. But it rejects a lot of things that are human, like it hates talking to human people, but it also loves watching like the equivalent of future soap operas. So it's got like there's a very human element to it, but it doesn't like humans. And what it ended up telegraphing to me was and I hope this isn't insulting to anybody because that's not the intention. I felt like this is a really, really good way to look at maybe people who are more neurodivergent, people who don't interact with other people so well, but certainly have their interests and passions and things that they really want to do. Anyway, what I liked about this is of all things, the humanity in the book. The robot is a first person, but there's a lot human about it, and there's a lot human about the way the humans around it embrace it in their own way. And it's also hard sci-fi, so it's got all of these things going for it.
Is it a short story collection that's connected or a novel?
Well, what it is, I'm looking at the very first book right now. The first book is 174 pages. So if assuming the other ones are like that, imagine it's probably the equivalent of one Wanderers. But
that's how you scale for things.
Conveniently going down for you to be able to carry it around, unlike Wanderers. So again, I haven't read the other ones, although I imagine they're great because the collection just won. But the first one certainly will want to keep you going.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And I just
really
take a moment to highlight this really on point comment from Chris Ryan. This is proving to be an expensive episode. I was saying the same thing. I'm like, I got to read the Murderbot Diaries.
Have you read any of the iRobot stuff by Yando Binder?
No.
It's the first series of self-aware robot continuing character things that were done in the 40s. They did an episode they adapted it to Outer Limits, both versions, the original series, and then the Nimoy did one where his son directed.
That's what I love about science fiction is, science fiction authors can take a staple like robots that have been around for almost a century, really, and find something new and really inventive to do with them.
And flip it.
And the premise of that is also that it sort of has free programming that's trying to figure out its place in the world. Mm-hmm. But this sounds like it's taken it, into our world completely. Consciousness of it, because it's.
So Teel, we're gonna kind of move things along so we can get to some of the other books, and you're actually next. Teel, second choice.
Try to be quick.
second pick. Zorro, The Daring Escapades. Editors Audrey Parente and Daryl McCullough.
All right, so full disclosure, I was contracted to write a Zorro story for the next volume of this. I love Zorro. This is no secret. I still want to be Guy Williams. This is no secret. I have most of the episodes of the Disney Zorro. This is no secret. I have a bunch of the original Johnston McCulley stories. Cool. And the thing is, the Daring Escapades, what's interesting about it is it's 16 authors, and including Will Murray and William Patrick Murray and Maynard, rather. And they all take different views of Zorro. And one of them is actually a straight up horror story with Zorro against a demon, which frankly I didn't actually think worked. I think it's off target for the character. But it's clear that many of the authors of this had seen one or the other versions of the Zorro TV series, and that was their image of Zorro in their mind. Mm-hmm. And considering how many Zorro films there have been, and there's 4 Zorro television series that have been, everyone has their own image of it. But to write my story, I went back to the original Johnston McCulley. And the thing most people don't realize is that he wrote the first Zorro story as a one-off. At the end, he reveals his identity. It's done. Then they made the movie, and they came and said, and his editor said to him, "We want you to do some more." He went, I ended the story. What can I do? So after a while, he decided he liked money. So he wrote a series of stories that take place between 2 chapters in the original novel. One of those things where he says, and then Zorro ran in the countryside for 2 weeks, and then the story continues. Well, he picked those 2 weeks and set everything in there. And then eventually he said, screw it, I'm just going to write Zorro stories. But they're just so well written because they're delicate. That's the thing that people don't get. Zorro never kills anyone. In the original novel, he kills no one. Don Diego has a duel and kills one person as Don Diego at the very end. Mm-hmm. And in the original novel, you don't know who Zorro is. You don't know until the last chapter who Zorro is. There's several suspects.
Hmm.
But after the movie, you can't do that anymore. It doesn't work, you know?
Right.
And it's delightful. But they're kind of like Anisette cookies. They're not deep, but they're kind of sweet, and they're pleasant while you read them, and then you move on. You know? So this
sounds like fun. Yeah.
Well, it was. It was really nice to have this as an assignment, so I have to make myself read them. So it was very nice to have to carve time out for something that was just enjoyable. And, you know, I got to write a Zorro story, which is the closest I'll get to playing Zorro, since they don't only cast me as a villain anyway. Damn them.
All right.
Sorry.
Let's
Well, Teel, we all got iPhones. We can do a Zorro movie with you as Zorro. I mean,
Yeah. Works for me.
Uh-huh.
We'll get
All
Mark
right,
to film it. Yeah.
let's take a look at Steven's second pick. Gypsy Kisses and Voodoo Wishes by Denise N. Tapscott.
Yes. So, in preparation for Denise to be a guest on Beef, Wine, and Shenanigans, and actually, I think she had me beta read part of this anyway. But then I sat down, read the whole thing, and so a couple of things that were great about this. First of all, it pits an angry Romani against a voodoo priestess, and she does it in this. It's a well executed period piece. She sets it in 1890s Louisiana, which is why you have this, you know, voodoo priestess in the first place, and then the Romani or gypsy lady. And basically, it sort of has this like Romeo and Juliet kind of star-crossed lovers kind of thing, and then everything kind of goes left. So real quick, I mean, first of all, as a sort of a subtext, she also tackles the hypocrisy of organized religion. She actually puts a better face on the culture of voodoo than I think Hollywood has done for the most part. I mean, you may have heard me say something to the effect of how Hollywood has actually done certain African-based religions a great disservice. But, you know, she crafted this great story, a couple of gut-wrenching twists. I believe it's her first novel. She just did a great job, and that's basically where I'm just going to leave it at that.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, Denise is so cool. I'm delighted to hear her book is equally interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
And yet another book goes into the Amazon cart.
It's also got a great cover. I got to say, that's
Yes.
a really powerful cover too.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. So, Carol, your next pick is up.
Yeah.
And that is Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson.
Yeah, I am amused that I was actually I'm writing. I just finished a cyberpunk novel, so I was reading a bunch of the old stuff, and I'm amused that I was reading this at the time that the person with the short curly hair from Facebook talked about creating the new metaverse. It's like that, and this is the book where it was created in 2003. It's not a new concept. It's just not. So yeah, that I enjoyed this one a lot. It is dark. Most cyberpunk is, and that cyberpunk was my lead into. It was my gateway drug into writing horror, frankly. So, you know, you try to make your world better, and you wind up worse for it. That's my interpretation of cyberpunk mostly, but this one was very cool, very fun, and the way he built the world was just so awesome. You know, I loved it a lot, so I recommend it.
Excellent. All right, and I'll do my next pick. The Lost Village by Camilla Sten. So this is a book I just happened to stumble across, and I don't actually remember how I heard about it or what exactly caught my interest, and I wound up buying it for my Kindle and reading it. And Camilla Sten is a Swedish author, and I would do the book a disservice if I tried to encapsulate everything that really fascinated me about it in a short review. Because what is at the heart of the book that makes it so effective are the character relationships, and they're very complex and they're very layered. And the book takes place in different time periods, and the premise, for the most part, is a young woman who's a filmmaker, an aspiring documentary maker, puts together this shoestring crew to go out to this village in rural Sweden, where at some point in the past, like the 40s or 50s, I forget the exact timeline, everyone vanished. And they're not sure what happened, why anyone vanished. And the only person that was recovered was a teenage girl from the village who'd been brutally murdered, strung up on a like a huge pole and stoned. And that's what they found. And they don't know where everybody went, and they don't know what happened to the village. And there are all sorts of factors. It was a mining village. The mine had shut down. The village was in decline. There was one railroad that went to the village. It ran like twice a day. A new pastor had come to the village, and there were all sorts of things swirling around that character. And it turns out that the documentary filmmaker has a connection to the people of the village. And several of the characters, and this was an interesting aspect of the book for me, because I read the introduction to the book before starting chapter 1. And the author talked about how the book grappled with issues and themes of mental health in different ways. And I thought, oh, maybe this is going to be a little too pedantic, or wearing its, kind of its theme on its sleeve. And it wasn't at all. And the characters, have a variety of really very realistic, credible, real life issues, psychological issues that are all important and are rooted in the story. And so it was really just a fascinating read. The revelation about what happened is really well done. And of course, they, strange things do start happening to them when they get to the village. And so they don't know, is it haunted? What's going on? Is it not safe? A survey team had ruled the area unsafe. And so they're not really sure they're even safe just being there with their, their two ragtag vans. But really interesting book. I found it to be very well written and well paced.
Cool. Do you think that girl is the one who got the little ticket, one piece of paper that had the little dot on it? Is she the one from Shirley Jackson's The Lottery?
No, it was darker than that.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So do we want, I'm kind of thinking we should save our other picks and maybe do a part 2 of this sometime if everyone's up for that.
We could do that.
I mean, this has been a great conversation. What
might be fun? We could do part 2 after, in the month that Stoker Con is in. That might be an interesting idea.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
Going forward. Yeah. All right.
Sure.
Oh my goodness. Wouldn't you figure that it's fun to talk about books with people who write them and read them?
I just look at the pictures.
That's fair.
Yep.
Yeah. Nicholas is voting for part 2. Okay. That's cool. So here's what we're going to do. I've tried putting the links to these things in the chat. StreamYard is telling me over and over an error occurred. Wait a moment, then try again. So I'm not sure if those came through to you guys or not. What we're going to do, I'll put them in the description that follows the YouTube recording of this. The recording will be up, shortly in a couple hours.
I'm seeing it in the YouTube list. They're making it into the YouTube list.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's good. And so we'll put them in the description on the YouTube recording. I can also have them put up on the HWA New York page that we have on Facebook and stuff. So we can get all these links to you guys. But maybe what I should do is send out another newsletter with this.
That's what
all right, guys.
It's like, we have this handy newsletter, Carol.
Yeah, you mean the one I write? Yeah. We should. So if you want it, that's probably the easiest way to get it. So I'm going to put the link in here. If you didn't get all the, Gary was speedy. He got all the links already. Yeah.
Or subscribe.
So you can sign up for the newsletter, and I can send you the entire list just in one swell swoop if you want that. So that'll be faster and easier. So yeah.
And remind, they don't spam. You get one newsletter, and that's it.
Yes. I usually do 2 a month, and I only did 1 this month, so this will be number 2. Yeah.
Well, you try harder, number 2.
That's it. Yeah.
So what is everybody working on? What's coming up on the horizon for everyone? Let's hear about our authors talk about their own work now before we wrap up for tonight. Randee, do you want to start us off? I know you've got a big project coming out this year.
I do. So before I even mention that real quick, I just wanted to say, answering a question from earlier with Horror for the Throne, by the way. I don't know if that was papyrus font or not. I didn't have anything to do with designing it. It is a Lu, hence the word throne. The idea is you can read them on the throne. And I have a story in there called Cat Person. I just wanted
Which is awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome. The
Yeah.
first thing I heard you read was that story, and I was frightened to be anywhere with you for a while after that.
She looks like such a lovely woman. Yes.
Yes.
It was
Yeah,
such a
that was
perfect-
unexpected.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's my pleasure. But yeah, later on the year, in August 16th is the pub date for Tune In Tomorrow, which is my humorous pop culture fantasy. At least I hope it's humorous. I think it's funny, but you know, that's the thing about humor. It's basically about a reality show run by mythical creatures that stars human beings, and there's every sort of trope you can possibly imagine that comes up, from mysterious disappearance to love triangle to all sorts of other things. Anyway, that's out on Solaris Rebellion in August. And if you go to my webpage, I have a newsletter, and you'll learn everything you need to know about it. So randeedawn.com. That is my big thing this year for sure.
That's awesome. Looking forward to it.
Congrats. What about you, Teel? You have a book coming out every week these days, it seems. What's going on?
On Friday, I start working on the third book in a Western trilogy that I've written for a British publisher, the Ghostmaker series. But I have the second book, the follow-up to Cowboy in Carpathia, which was the novel that won, where Robert E. Howard meets Dracula. The follow-up for that, A Cowboy and a Conqueror, will be coming out this year, where he gets to meet Yog Sothoth. Well, he doesn't actually meet him; they have a disagreement. But I will say this right off the bat: Winston Churchill's the villain, but we'll go from there.
Wait. Winston Churchill and Yog Sothoth are in the same book, and Churchill's the villain?
Churchill is the bigger villain of the two.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm just trying to imagine how one meets Yog Sothoth, who's
Well, you know,
best
it helps
described
if
as like a
introduction to
gathering of
friend.
cosmic bubbles.
Yeah,
What's
you
that?
know, yeah, it helps you have an introduction to a friend. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they met on Tinder.
What about you, Steven? What's coming up for you?
Oh, wow. I would love to say that I have finished Killer Genius 3 or Brookwater's Curse 4, but they're both
But
in process.
Yes.
Mainly because I'm also stage managing every television show in New York these days. So that's taking up some time. Beat Wine and Shenanigans is still, slugging along. Stand-up comedian Chloe Hilliard will be joining us this Sunday. Speaking of body issues in society and whatever, she actually put out a book literally entitled "Fuck Your Diet and Other Things My Thighs Tell Me." So it's going to be a very spirited discussion, let me tell you.
Oh, I've got to listen in on this one. Yeah.
Oh boy.
So there's that. I have other episodes of Extra History,
which are awesome.
Thank you.
They really are.
And where do people find those, Steven? The Extra History
they got to go visit YouTube and look up the Extra History channel. They have also got Extra Mythology. They actually started something called So You Haven't Read. And the animated version, their animated take on Christmas Carol, I actually play the Ghost of Christmas Future. Cartoon me plays the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Nice.
So
wait a minute, this isn't cartoon you?
Well,
he's got arms and attached to his hands.
That's
so,
it.
yeah.
Sorry, no.
Yeah. But so they cast me as Ghost of Christmas. Not present, not future, present. I look very jolly.
Oh,
so
okay.
you're a Christmas present. Okay.
I'm Christmas present. Yeah.
That's great.
So I'm still putting out stuff for them. The last one that dropped was the Cotton Gin. So that was
Cool.
Oh yeah.
everyone
Yeah, yeah.
found that one very
Intense.
informative
Yeah.
Very
and
good.
intense, as a lot of these are, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
why I'm in a mood these days. But that's what's up with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I think we can all share that Steven, Teel, and Randee all have stories in a new anthology called Even in the Grave, which Carol and I co-edited. That'll be forthcoming in a few months.
Right.
Expect to hear a lot more about that on Galactic Terrors.
We may mention it from here and there. Yeah.
A ghost of a mention, if nothing else.
Hey,
Oh, I see what you did there.
It may
Yeah.
haunt us.
Yeah.
But Steven, you didn't happen to stage manage Andy Cohen's New Year's Eve meltdown, did you?
No, I missed that.
Oh, good.
And I'm actually kind of okay because
Yeah.
it's just too cold out there. It's like if I don't have to do New Year's Eve, I'm not going to at this point in my life. Don't get me wrong, I like money, but
I've heard of this thing you speak of, but I've not seen it.
There's also a birthday that falls in there, so yeah.
Yes, Carol, that's true. I've already given up several birthdays, New Year's Eves, to work. So
it's kind of grim. Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah.
And Carol, how about you? What's new?
Well,
and exciting?
that wonderful anthology, the Even in the Grave, that we have been editing. I put the press release in the chat because I can.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I have a short story that's going to be coming out later in the year from Chrome Girls Press. It's called Susurrations, and it is based upon the little magnet set. The fridge magnet set that is from Raw Dog Screaming Press with all the horror words we can rearrange and make poems. So yeah, that was the inspiration for that story. So that was kind of cool. Yeah.
Cool.
And what about you, Jim?
Well, I have it's looking like it's going to be a busy year, but right now I'm very excited about writing a story for the Kolchak the Night Stalker 50th anniversary graphic novel. That'll be coming out later this year. It's on Kickstarter right now. It's going to be one hell of a good book. It's deluxe hardcover will be available. Lots of great art. This is one of those things. The last few years, I've been writing Kolchak now for a while, and I talk to people at horror conventions and online, and I've always had this sense that I think Kolchak might be more popular now than he was in 1974. And this Kickstarter, I think, proved that because it was funded to something like 3 times.
Instantly.
Yeah, it was funded in less than a day, and
The
in 2
covers
days
they put up are great too. I mean, there's like 3 variant covers, and they all look awesome.
They're amazing. I've seen samples of art from the artist who's going to be drawing my story, and I was blown away. Somebody who really gets the likenesses, which is important for characters like Kolchak. And I'm writing the last story in the comics anthology. So what that means, I'll let you speculate until it actually sees print.
Days of Kolchak future past. Wait, if
Right.
SVP is a Christmas present, then this is going to be Kolchak. Wait a minute. I need some of that wine. Come on, pass it over. Yeah.
All right.
So very excited about that. And of course, Even in the Grave, very excited about that. And that we'll be doing a Kickstarter campaign for as well, which will launch in February. And that's it. And, other than that, more to come, as always. I feel like I'm almost catching up to Teel.
Yeah, it's because he's got those long legs. He's out in front of us. That's why.
If I had a life, I wouldn't have a career. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Oh, and Angela asked about the magnet set from Raw Dog Screaming Press. Do they sell it on their site? I'm not sure, but I will find out and let you know. So, yeah, it's very
Check out the newsletter. It'll be in the newsletter.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, that's fair.
All right. And so just a reminder that Galactic Terrors every second Thursday of the month. And we are looking forward to continuing this. I think this month everybody was so busy, we thought, let's try something different. And we're glad that we could bring this to you. You can, of course, click subscribe below to follow future Galactic Terrors transmissions. And we've already talked up the newsletter, so I'll just say our next show will be February 10th, right here on YouTube or on the HWANY's Facebook page. And if you'd like more information about HWANY, you can visit our website.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Right.
And there was
Oh,
one.
you guys
yeah.
are fun. You know, this is almost the kind of chat that you have in the bar at the end of the convention, and here we are doing it here. This is fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy talking about books with you guys.
And I was going to, Stephen is doing our virtual drinking for us. So
I know, I feel bad. All I've got is water. I should have.
I have a very cool tentacular mug. And, one of my friends, one of my friends who writes horror and mystery is Tara Laskowski, and she saw this online, and we both love tentacular creatures, and she said, "I've got to get this," and I said, "I've got to get this." So I'm referencing her by drinking from this because I just finished reading her book today, and it was great. I didn't even get to talk about that one yet. So
Don't let Oliver Bear see that.
True. All right.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you for coming in.
Very good to be here.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us and for sharing some of your reading picks from 2021. And I think part 2 looks promising. So maybe we'll talk about that and see if we can get back to those last picks and maybe add a few more. I'm sure we'll all have read some more books by then.
I was going to say, is it possible we could apply for a government loan for the books that we're going to have to be purchasing? It's like, if I'm in my own bubble, I don't see as many books, but when I talk to people and then I get,
yeah, but you know, I my idea, Teal. I think that every time you buy a book, it should come with this little disc, a little coin that you can use to purchase 6 to 10 hours with which to read the book. I think that this needs to be a thing.
It's a pocket universe coin, so you can just read it. Nobody bothers you. Then you come back and go on with life.
Exactly.
And it'll keep track of what page you're on too. So I think
I'm
maybe
totally
we
on
need to
board
talk to
with
John
that.
Lawson at Raw Dog and have him, come up with one of those.
How come you didn't mention your cryptid?
I'm not mentioning that.
Okay.
Thank you for asking, though.
All right.
All right, everyone.
Well, thank you, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next month.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.